Hello friends, good morning. This is Durga from IT University. And as you guys know, this is primarily backup for my live audience. So let me start the WebEx session and we'll take it further. I am starting recorder here. So before I start today's session, let me help you how to get updates from WebEx. So I have sent you a recurring invitation. So there will be classes. Uh, the schedule is the classes start on June 12th night in US time, and it will go up to 20 classes. Okay, and out of those 20 classes, because of the long weekend, there are no classes on July 3rd and July 4th. Except that, unless I notify you, you will have classes. And some guys might be getting reminders, some guys might not be getting reminders. The reason could be, I'm not 100% sure, but the reason could be you might not have accepted the invitation. If you accept the invitation 30 minutes before the session, you will get the invitation. You will get the reminder like this with the link to join the session. As I am the host, I have start here. For you, you will see join. Okay. So make sure you accept the invitation by going to WebEx so that you get reminders. Okay, and it's a recurring meeting, so the same link will most likely work for all the sessions. Okay, so even if I forget to send you the WebEx link on WhatsApp or whatever network you are following me, still you should be able to. You are good to go. Okay, so that being said, now let me go to the agenda for today's session. Okay, so we are talking about the functions and operators. Um, uh, and yesterday I was talking about higher order and anonymous functions. So there were some questions because of the confusion between higher order functions and anonymous functions and regular functions. So let me start answering that question first. So if you look at this program, okay, so we have function called id, called square, called cube. These are normal functions which will take a parameter and return a value. So higher order function is the function which will use these functions. So sum is kind of a higher order function for these things. That's the only difference between normal function and higher order functions. And anonymous function is the function which do not have name. So this is anonymous function, there is no name. This is an anonymous function, there is no name. And this is another anonymous function which don't have name. Okay, but you can assign it to variable or a parameter. Okay, so in this example, we are assigning it to variable. When we actually pass anonymous function like this, we are assigning it to the argument. So we are calling a function called sum, where the first argument is nothing but logic. Okay, so that's the main thing which you need to understand. Rest of the stuff, whether you understand at this time or not, it doesn't matter. We will catch up very soon. Amarnath, I have already started recording the session. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so you will see the recorder at the bottom corner. I'm not sure WebEx guys can see this or not. WebEx will not, even though I'm sharing my entire desktop, the chart which I'm looking at and some of the components of WebEx might not be visible to you. Okay, the reason is chat can be private as well as to everyone. So if anyone want to chat with me privately, if the chat is visible to all WhatsApp folks, it is not a good sign. So that's why probably they might have disabled some of the components being visible to you. Okay, so that being said, now let us go to the previous function, which is sum. So instead of using recursion, because recursion is causing a lot of doubts in your guys' minds, let's focus on regular function. Okay. So here, first let us revisit the sum of numbers if you develop in regular fashion. The reason why I'm spending so much time on this is understanding anonymous functions, how you can actually pass them, anonymous functions or even the named function, how you can actually pass to higher order functions is very, very important. If you don't understand that, you will get into a lot of confusion when we start using Spark. That's why I'm reiterating this. I will spend up to 20 to 25 minutes. Even if some of you folks did not get it, we will move forward as we will be using these things quite a lot. By the end of the course, you will definitely be very confident about these anonymous functions. I will be highlighting about the anonymous functions and passing functions as parameters wherever it is relevant in future. So even if you do not get it 100% straight, let's move on after 25 to 30 minutes, and then we will be reviewing as and when it is required. Okay, so how do you develop a sum of integers? So I'm creating, I'm going to paste mode here. Okay, and a typical sum of functions, a sum of numbers within a range will be like this. I'm not even passing a function as parameter here. I'm just taking two numbers and trying to get the sum of those numbers within the range. So it takes two integer parameters. And then you just have to create a variable called res, initialize it to 0, and for element A to B, okay, we just have to add it to res. And then we have to return res in the end, which is result. Okay, now you have the logic for adding sum of integers within a given range. So now if I say sum of 5, 10, give you 45, which is correct. Okay, 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 is 45. So now you might want to add sum of squares of numbers. A typical logic will be, instead of just adding element, you will be doing element into element, and you will be adding that to result. If you want to cube, if you want to get sum of cubes of numbers, then you have to say element into element into element, and then you have to add it to result, and you will get the cubes. So if you think of in a traditional way, you have to write 3 sum functions: 1 to add integers, 2 to add squares of integers, 3 to add cubes of integers. To avoid that, if we can pass a function which is nothing but you are passing logic, and if you can invoke that logic as part of that program, you don't need to create 3 different functions for sum alone. Rather, you can use one function by name sum, and you can implement sum of integers, sum of squares of integers, sum of cubes of integers. And if you want to get sum of multiples of 2 for the numbers, you can do that. If you want to get sum of multiples of 3s, you can do that. Okay. So for that reason, they have provided a feature called passing logic to another function. That logic can be a named function, a function which is assigned to a variable. The third is anonymous function, where there is no name at all. Okay, so as part of the first example, let's try to create 3 functions: id, square, and cube. Id will just give return that same number. Square will return square of the given number, and cube will return the cube of the given number. Okay, so I have created 3 named functions here: id, square, and cube. Okay, and then I want to pass this as one of the parameters, and within that main function, within the higher order function sum, I want to use this logic wherever it is required. Okay, So for that, we need to refactor the code for sum. It takes a function. It can be any name. Let's give it as p or f, whatever it is. So this is the parameter name or argument name. Okay, and that take one for this purpose. If you see all these functions, it takes only one parameter, which is of type integer. So here we have to define uh, the parameter type for the function which we are calling. Okay, and then we have to give the return value like this. Okay, so this is more important. If you are passing two parameters for the as part of the logic, if it requires two parameters, you have to put it in circular brackets, and you can pass as many parameters as your logic requires. Okay, for our logic, it requires only one parameter, which is of type integer, and return type is also integer. Okay, and then a int, b int. Okay, and then I am creating variable res equal to 0 for element. Here there is no change. The logic is same, a to b. Okay, and then while adding to result, instead of adding element, I want to use the function, and whatever function returns, I want to add it to the result. Okay, and that for that function, in this case, I want to pass one integer at a time, which is represented by ele or element. Okay, so here I am saying p, which is the function name, and it takes one parameter, which is of type integer, and it returns integer, and that integer will be added to result. Okay, and then you return result, which will be some of the result of the function. Instead of directly adding it, it is adding the result of the function. Now this p can accept any logic or a function which takes a parameter of type integer and returns a value of type integer. So here all id, square, cube, or some, even if you create some junk function which takes one parameter and returns 0. 0 is also integer, right? So even you can pass this junk also to your function. Okay, to the higher order function called sum. So now if I say sum of junk, so here I'm only passing a function, which means I'm passing the logic which needs to be executed as part of sum, and then I am passing 5, 10. It will return 0 because we are only fetching 0 in each iteration and adding it to result. That's why it returns 0. Now if I want to add a named function, if I want to invoke the function sum, a higher order function sum with a lower order named function id, and then give 5, 10 as other two parameters. The id returns the same element itself in each iteration, so you will get the result as sum of integers. If you want to get sum of squares, you just give square, which will be this logic. Okay, yeah, so for each number, whenever it is invoked, it will get the square and you will get the result. So here we are invoking named functions, but we can use anonymous functions also. When you use anonymous functions, so it's pretty straightforward. I'm not sure where the confusion is. The for loop is pretty straightforward. So a is the lower limit, b is the upper limit, and by default, as part of the first class I have explained, so I will reiterate. So let's say you say element I'm e 1 to 100. Okay, so the default behavior is to increment by 1. Okay, if you want to increment or decrement by different number than 1, then you have to use by 2, and it will increment by 2. So you can see here, it started with 1 and it started incrementing by 2. If you want to decrement from 100 to 1 by 2, you have to say -2 here. Okay, and then it decremented. No. So you have to go to my first class. I cannot answer all these questions because it will be a big distraction. You have to go back to my first class where I have covered for loops quite extensively, and you have to practice so that you understand that. It is an assignment operator. So it is iterating through 1 to 100, and it is assigning to the variable called ELE in each iteration. Okay, so it is not less than and decrement. You missed the previous point and you only focused on the latest one. Prior to that, I have shown that it is incrementing. Okay, there also I am using the same symbol. Okay, so that is about for loop. Somalia. So the function is called here. So as part of the program, we are invoking the function, and when we actually call some of the function logic and the other 2 parameters, as part of the program, we are invoking that lower order function. Yeah, I will cover a few more examples after I talk about anonymous functions. Okay, the lower order function can be a named function like id, junk, or square. It can be anonymous functions also. And when it comes to anonymous functions, you can give name. You can assign a variable name to it. So anonymous function syntax is like this. So the parameter has to be passed in circular brackets, and you have to give imply like that, and you can have whatever logic you want as part of the anonymous function. If it is multi-line, you can put it in curly braces. Otherwise, you can just put it in single line also. So here, let's say I want to create an anonymous function which takes 1 parameter and returns the same value, or if it is square, this is the logic. If it is cube, this is the logic. If you want to write it in multiple lines, to validate whether if I is greater than 0 or not. If you want to add only then, if I is greater than 0, let's say I want to add the number. If the I is not greater than 0, I just want to return 0. Okay, let's say that is the functionality which we want. In that case, I can actually say if I is less than 0, return 0, else return I. I can write it in multiple lines also, like this. Okay, so this is another example for the anonymous function. But as we are not giving names, we cannot use it anywhere. Okay, so sometimes it might be a good idea to create to assign variable names to it. So let me create a variable by name I. Okay, and let me give name to this as I, and then let us say I want to give name to the square logic like this. Okay, and then for cube, like this. So now we have the sum function. What is the logic for the sum function? So one thing you need to keep one thing in mind. You have to practice. If you don't practice, no matter how effective or how ineffective I teach, it will not make much difference over a period of time. If you practice beyond the class, then you will be able to grasp a lot as I move forward. So you have to practice. Okay, now I am actually copy pasting the sum function here again. I'm reiterating sum takes 3 parameters. The first parameter has to be a function, and that lower order function has to take one parameter which is of type integer and return some value which is of type integer. And other two parameters are just a and b, because I want to compute sum of numbers between those two, or sum of squares of numbers between the a and b, or sum of cubes of numbers between a and b. Okay, so now earlier I have invoked the named function. Here I am using the variable and trying to invoke anonymous function. So if I say sum of 5 comma 10, sorry, I should not have def here. Okay, you got sum of integers between 5 and 10. If I say sum of s, you got 355. If you say sum of cube, you got 2925. Okay, so like that you can invoke whether with a named function or with anonymous function which are created as immutable variables. Or the third and very important stuff is it can be anonymous function itself. Okay, now instead of invoking with invoking to get sum of integers, sum of squares of integers, sum of cubes of integer, let's say I want to get sum of multiples of those integers between 5 and 10. So how can I do that? Here I can define the logic. Okay, the logic takes one as parameter, one variable as parameter. Okay, and then I have to implement the logic, which will return an integer. As long as it returns integer, it is fine. Let's say I return some string of integer. Okay, so here this is the logic I'm passing directly. I'm not passing a named function to it. I'm passing logic directly. Okay, Gopi, you need to wait. Let me finish it and I will come back to your question. See here, the function which is the lower order function which we are calling here is nothing but this itself. But when we actually define sum, we mentioned that the return type is as integer, but here the return type is not integer, so it has thrown a compiler error saying that there is a type mismatch. Okay, so it has to be an integer. If I just pass 0, so here whenever it invoke the function as part of the logic, we are trying to return 0 as per the logic which we are passing. Okay, and hence it will return 0 itself. If I pass 2 into I, whenever as part of the sum, which is a higher order function, whenever the lower order function, which is what is lower order function? This is lower order function, which takes one parameter which is of type integer and returns a value which is of type integer. Whenever this is invoked, it will multiply with 2 and it will return that number as the output for this lower order function call, and hence we will get sum of multiples of 2's. If you want to get sum of multiples of 3's, you can write like this. You can also write multi-line code like this. So let's say if I mod 2, I hope you understand I mod 2. So I'm trying to divide I with 2, and if it is so in this case I only want to get sum of integer number, sum of even numbers. So if I mod 2 equal to 0, I want to get sum of the numbers. Otherwise, I just want to decrement by 1. So whenever there is an odd number, I just want to decrement by 1. Whenever there is an even number, I just want to keep on adding those things. Some hypothetical scenario. So I'm just trying to complicate a little bit so that you understand how you can actually pass a function of multiple lines of code. Okay, so if I mod 2 equal to 0, I want to add that number, so I just have to return I, else I just have to return -1. Okay, so whenever it encounters a odd number, it will decrement by 1. Otherwise, it will keep on adding the even numbers. Okay, so this completes the first parameter. Okay, so the parameter, the parameter is nothing but a function. The argument is nothing but a function. That function takes one parameter which is of type integer and returns one integer. Okay, it could be either I or it could be -1. And then I just want to get from 5 to 100 and hit enter. Now you see, this is the sum of numbers applying this some weird logic, some hypothetical logic. Okay, so that being said, I will take few questions here for 5 minutes, but we will not stop even if you all could not get the logic. Unless you practice, you will not get it. So you have to practice. We will be using these things quite a lot going forward, and we will see at that point in time. So I hope you are asking for. So let me take these questions one after the another. So Gopi is asking one question. So I don't know. I didn't see this kind of stuff. I'm not sure why you are getting like that. I'm just getting plain numbers. Yeah, I'm using Scala. Probably you might be talking about Python. So I'm passing that, Gopi. So I'm going to Amarnath's question. Can you go to the declaration? So Gopi, which declaration are you talking about? Sorry, Amarnath, which declaration are you talking about?
The function declaration.
So the sum, you mean?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So this is the one.
So because we are returning integer for that parameter, we are doing that. We are passing the integer.
Yeah. So here we are passing integer. ELE is of type integer. In each iteration, so in this case, if I say 5 to 10, I am calling this lower order function 6 times. If I say 5 to 100, I am calling this. Okay. 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 Yeah. So yeah. So this is the argument name. With the first argument name p, and this argument, which is of type function, takes one parameter of type integer. Okay, and returns some value which is of type integer. So whatever logic you pass to this, it has to satisfy this. It has to take one parameter which is of type integer and return one value which is of type integer.
So when you say the p colon, it indicates it's a function.
No. So here also you have p colon, a colon. Here also you have b colon. So the entire syntax tells that it's a function which have a parameter and also return value. So you have to use this entire thing constitute the syntax. Okay. So Sandeep, here it has to be -1 only, Sandeep. So because I just my point is, I just want to decrement by one value whenever I see an odd number. So so if I have to decrement by one value, the p of ELE has to be -1. I just want to decrement by 1. I don't want to decrement from the result or anything. I just if I see an odd number, I just want to decrement. If I see an even number, I just want to add.
Okay, so Durga, let me take this. So you have this I, 5, 10,
right?
So the first, what will be when the process starts, right? So what is the first number that goes as an argument? It will we pass 5 to the underlying procedure or the
lower order function. Lower order function, it will be p of 5. And
if you call ideal function, it is returning 5 again.
yeah, ID and I are same. Here, this one and ID are same.
So it is returning 5 there.
Yeah.
5 is added to the result.
Yes.
And then 6 will come, 6 will add to result, 5 plus 6. That's what you're saying.
That's correct. If it is sum of squares, it will be 5 multiplied by 5 will be added to result, and then which will be 25. When 6 comes, it will be 36 that will be added to 25. Okay. So Kasi, you are asking questions which are much ahead of time. I haven't covered tuples yet, so I'm just ignoring that question. Ashish, so you can come up with your own examples. Okay. So you can try whatever you want and come back with questions. I'm not sure what Anish is. Okay, Anish is just explaining. Okay, yes, Anish, that's how it works. So Suman is asking, how can we invoke square from sum? So here there are 3 ways to invoke square from sum. Yeah. So see, I do not understand your question completely, Suman. So if you are talking about invoking SQL function which you have created, you can invoke directly also. You can invoke any lower order function from higher order function. Okay, but we want to eliminate the fact that we have 3 sum. So let's say if I want to get sum of squares in a normal way, what I will do, I will create a function square, and I will be invoking that. So I understand your question, Suman. So I will spend just few minutes on this, and then we will proceed further. I'm going to paste mode here. Okay. So let's say I just want to create one function in a traditional way, which takes two integers, which is a of int and then b of int. Okay. And here I already have id function, square function, and cube function. If you want to use those things, how will you do? First, you cannot directly you cannot directly invoke those square and cube randomly. You need to have a third parameter which tells what type of function you want to use. So it has to take 3 parameters. Okay, it has to take 3 parameters, probably of type string. And then this is the traditional way of programming. Okay, if func equal to square, okay, then you will either invoke another function or you will be you will be directly implementing the logic here. Let's take the example of invoking the existing square function. So what you will do, if function equal to square, then you have to invoke okay, I have to create a variable result where result equal to 0. Then if func equal to square, and then I want to invoke the square function which takes two numbers which are a comma b. Then else if func equal to cube, I want to invoke cube function. Else I'll be just adding the numbers, or we can also okay, no, it will not work like this. So sorry, let me see. The way it will work is so up to here it is correct. Okay, then I have to say res plus equal to, okay, I have to loop here. Okay, so it will be very complicated for uh, element A to B. I have to say result plus equal to square of A. This is the traditional way of programming. So if you see, it is very complicated. Now, if I want to add cube, I have to refactor this function. And if I have to add sum of regular integers, I have to refactor this function. So every time I have to change the same function again and again. So as I have mentioned to you earlier, functional programming gets you better modularity. So this is the perfect example for it. Okay, if you compare with my earlier sum function and this function, it is much more modular with very few side effects. So that's why functional programming is better way of coding. I hope you got it, Suman. So I think Gopi have just made a statement. So one real-time example, Bala, if in case of ATM transaction and we have function or program that calculates the fee for CM to total amount, in this case, we need to send the function for each country as its logic varies. Here we can use anonymous function or pass function. That is correct. So Piyush is asking me to, could you provide some practice examples apart from the examples you are taking here for offline? Yes, once I cover collections, I will give very interesting example. So stay tuned. You can build your own case for now, and you can keep on practicing. But you will be definitely working on much more interesting examples when I actually get into the collections. And final question on this topic, basically we are just calling the individual functions sum of numbers squares inside the function sum by using anonymous function as a parameter. I think this phrasing is simple and correct, right? That's correct, Gopi. You are spot on. So that being said, now let us get on to the. Yeah, Somali, I just answered that question. I'm not sure, you might be watching me on YouTube. Don't mix up the things. I want you to be 100% sure on that. So I will be covering examples or exercises as and when I cover object-oriented concepts and collections. Okay. Otherwise, it doesn't make much of a sense. For now, you can just come up with simple examples. I will also give some traditional programming examples like Pascal triangle and all those things. You can keep on practicing. I will probably update the blog so that you can have a look at those functions offline. So I tried writing a function in the same example to choose function which takes an integer and returns either of the three functions. How to do it? So let's defer this question. I think it is not relevant to what we are discussing right now. It is a little bit different. So let's defer that question for now. We can take it offline also. Okay. So let's move on. Don't worry if you still did not get complete control on this. You have to practice, and we will be doing that as we proceed further, and you will understand. Now comes very, very important topic, operators. So when it comes to Scala, almost everything is a function. Even adding two numbers is a function. Concatenating two strings is a function. So if you, let's say, I have created two variables, val a equal to 1 and val b equal to 2. Okay, so both are of type integer. Now there is a very powerful feature. So people are asking, what should you refer? What should I refer for getting better at all these things? So I typically don't search around. I use only official documentation and the help which it provides. Okay, so you can get you can access official documentation by saying Scala documentation. Probably the first link or second link from Scala will be Scala's official documentation. So you should use that as reference. Okay. don't search around and try to make it complicated. If you want to learn really from other mentor with proper reference, I will recommend Martin Odersky, who is the writer of the programming language. Yeah, and I'm able to tell that. So either his books or his courses on Coursera, which are free, you can go through it and you can be better at Scala. So now if I hit A dot and tab, it provide all the functions available here. And if you see, even plus, minus, double equal to, all these are functions. Okay. So typically, how do you invoke function? You will give the first object dot, and then the second, and then the function name, and then you will pass the second object as parameter. In this case, A and B are objects of type integer. So this is how you typically invoke functions. So you can see here, A dot plus of B, it return 3, same as A plus B. So the difference between this and this is only syntactical. So you can actually invoke a function with this dot to invoke the function, and then you can pass parameters like this, or you can also give it like this. So this dot and these circular braces to pass the parameters for the function are optional. They are not mandatory like in traditional programming language. So when it comes to Scala, almost all the typical operators are functions themselves. So this notation of excluding dot to invoke a function and circular braces for the parameters have certain limitations. Don't worry too much about those limitations at this time. It will work for most of the simple cases like this, but in some complex cases, for example, if you have to pass two parameters to a given function, then probably passing parameters in circular braces like this might not work. Okay, without circular braces might not work. You have to put it in circular braces and you have to pass both the parameters. But if it takes only one parameter, it makes sense to exclude the circular braces and it will work perfectly. Okay, so this is very important to understand, and again, it's a different from Java. So we'll get into those details, Sandeep. Again, this is a question ahead of the course, so I will defer it for now. Let's focus on operators. Okay, as I have mentioned to you earlier, towards the end of the course, probably for 5 to 10 minutes, I will definitely take random questions. But as part of the main course, I will stick to only the questions relevant to the particular topic. Okay. So similar to plus, minus is also an operator. Is an operator which is nothing but a function. I can say A dot of minus B and it returns -1. Also, if you want to multiply, you can say like this, or you can also say like this. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, if you want to compare, let's take two strings as examples. Okay, so val s1 equal to hello. So this is primarily for Java programmers. For others, it will be pretty straightforward. But for Java developers, you need to you will run into a surprise. You have to overcome that surprise. So Java developers pay some extra attention because it's very important. So hello world, we have two strings which are not equal. So if I want to compare two strings, okay, in Java, what you will do, you will say s1 dot equals s2. So equals function returns true if both are equal. It will return false if both are not equal. So here I am saying s1 dot equals of s2. Because they both are not equal, it returns false. But in Java, if you say s1 equal to s2, still it might return true or false. It need not return false, because when you say double equal in Java, it actually compares the object reference, not the object itself. Okay, hence it will work in a different manner, and it might result in true or false when you say s1 equal to s2. Okay, whereas in Scala, if you actually go to the source code of any function, any class, and if you look for this one, this is also a function. So you can actually invoke s1 equals s2. So we are actually calling a function double equal to compare two values. And if you actually go to the source code, the actual functionality for this double equal will call the equals function. So they have come up with their own logic where double equal will actually compare the contents of objects rather than object references. So if I say s1 dot double equal to of s2 or s1 double equal to s2, it works same way as dot equals. So dot equals and double equal to is same in Scala. Okay, and if you want to override the functionality of equals, if you override equals, because as part of Scala, the double equal compares double equal invokes equals. If you override equals, automatically double equal logic also will be overridden. Okay, so that is very, very important. And if you want to compare not equal to, you can say like this, which will compare the contents of both the objects and it return true. If you want to get something similar to comparing object references rather than the content itself, there is a special function called EQ. I'm not sure which class have that. I think string does not have it directly. Let me see. This will not work. Yeah. So s1 dot EQ. I think some higher order class which string extents have the functionality for EQ. And here you can see s1 dot EQ will actually compare the reference of two objects. In this case, these two are two different variables, so it is returning false. But if they are pointing to the same object reference, it might return true. So EQ is same as double equal in Java, and double equal and equals is same as equals in Java. Okay, very, very important. So, and Java folks might get confused at times, so I'm emphasizing quite a bit on it. Okay, so that's about operators. For Boolean, we also have functions or operators such as double ampersand, which is of type AND, double pipe, which is for OR, and this one for negation. So here, let's create two variables, val b1 of type true, val b2 with value true, and val b3 with value false. Okay, so if you want to apply OR operator or AND operator, you can say b1 ampersand b2 true, because both are true, whereas b1 double ampersand b3 returns it will return false. You can also invoke like this, okay, because every operator is a function. Okay, so that is about using Boolean operators. So there is a question here. Let me go to that question. So when it comes to concatenation, it is same. So you can use either a traditional means there will be definitely a function for concatenation like this, s1 concat space dot concat. I'm trying to print hello world. Okay, so s2, you got hello world. You can also say s1 plus. So for string, if you use plus, it actually do the concatenation. No, double pipe is not for concatenation. It is for Boolean OR. So here I can say s1 plus s2 to concatenate hello and world along with space in between. Okay. Sandeep, yeah, some programming languages double pipe is concatenation, but in Java it's plus. So here also it is plus. And also please change it to everyone before asking the question, so that everyone will have context even if I do not repeat. So Ashish is asking what is the best practice we should use with the dot operation. So it is up to you whether you want to use dot or not. Okay, but when it comes to performing operations like addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, etc., it doesn't make sense to put dot and circular braces for parameters. Otherwise, for the rest of the stuff, in some cases, when you actually do exception handling and all those things, to make it little bit readable, we can avoid these dots and circular brackets. It's up to you anyway. But for operators, it doesn't make sense to use dot and circular braces for parameters. And also, don't give up. Don't give up using dot and circular braces to pass parameters, because there are limitations for those. It will not work always. It all depends upon how many parameters it take, and there are many other limitations. One limitation is if you have if you have a function which takes two properties. If I say a plus two parameters, a plus b, then how can I pass the second parameter? Okay, I cannot say b comma c. It doesn't make sense. I have to say something like this so that it makes sense. That is one limitation. If you have more than one parameter that needs to be passed for a function, you have to use circular brackets. So I didn't get your question, Piyush. S1 length, there was one feature warning, rerun with feature for details. Okay, there was one feature warning. Okay, let me see S1 length. Okay, I'm also not sure. Let us run it with the feature. No. Rerun with feature for details. Okay, I don't know how to pass this feature. This is the first time I am encountering this, or I might have ignored earlier. So we will see that later. I'm also not 100% sure. And now let me say s1 dot length, whether it will give the same error. Yeah, if I say s1 dot length, it was not complaining. So I'm not sure. Okay, so the next one is from Ashish. She told got it. How to print a range of number with spaces. I was facing problem. How to print a range of numbers with spaces. Yeah, it's simple. For I 1 to 10, print I plus space. That's it. Okay. So probably might be using print ln. That could be the reason. So if you ln means add a new line character at the end. If you just say print, it will just keep on printing on the same line. Okay. Any more questions here on the operators? So next we'll get into more important stuff, object-oriented concepts. So here there are a bunch of folks who are still going to college, and I will not be going back and covering all the object-oriented concepts here. So slowly and steadily, you need to add those skills by yourself. Don't worry if you don't understand the object-oriented concepts completely as part of this. Because for Spark, object-oriented concepts is not very important to begin with. At some point, you might have to deal with them, but to begin with, it's not very important. Okay, so that's a pre-note before we start on object-oriented concepts. And from the concepts perspective, Scala even though it is debatable, they claim it as a pure object-oriented programming language. It's both functional as well as object-oriented. So here, functional does not replace or supplement object-oriented programming. Functional can complement object-oriented programming. That's the main consideration while developing Scala as a programming language by Martin Odersky. Okay. Casting. So Gopi is asking if casting is same as Java in Scala. I'm not 100% sure on it. So I will defer it for now. It's a very good question. We will come back to it. Okay. Please remind me after the class, Gopi. I will definitely do some research and try to respond to that question either tomorrow's class or next week's class. Okay. So when it comes to Scala, it has support for all object-oriented concepts: polymorphism, abstraction, inheritance, encapsulation, etc. We can use classes and subclasses for regular classes in Java. Scala supports something called object, which is a special type of class which is called a singleton class. And then Scala have unique way of dealing with interfaces, as it is significantly different from Java interfaces. They name it as trait. Okay, so we'll be seeing classes, subclasses, and objects up to some extent. Traits, I put it out of the scope of the course, but I will show the existing traits, and I will try to explain few of the important concepts of traits, but we will not see them in action directly. So we'll not be creating a trait and play with it as part of the course. Okay, because it is not very important for Spark to begin with. And then there are some additional stuff, additional features which you need to understand, which is unique to Scala, which you don't see in Java. As I have mentioned to you, there is object, which is of type singleton class. We'll be using quite a lot of objects, and there are classes, and there is a special type of combining this class and object, and it is called as companion object. We will see that in action. And most importantly, case classes. So case classes is very, very important, and we will see them also quite a bit as part of for the course. Okay. So now let's start with the topic. The first topic, creating objects. So instead of starting with creating classes, we will actually start with creating the objects. So before getting into that, now let us review our IntelliJ IDE. Okay. So if you have already set up the environment and if you create the project, you will see something like this. So far we have been coding using REPL. As I have mentioned to you earlier, REPL is primarily to explore your code. You will not be submitting or building applications using REPL. So what you have to do if you want to deploy, if you want to build a Java-based application, you will not be you will not be running your application through Eclipse. Eclipse or IntelliJ or even REPL, they are developer tools. They are not for deploying your applications and support your applications. That is not the purpose of this. They are primarily developer tools. REPL is also a developer tool. IntelliJ is also a developer tool. Eclipse is also a developer tool. Okay, but when it comes to REPL, we can validate our code, explore our code, play with it in a trial and error fashion until you get proper logic. Once you get the final piece of code which you think is good enough, then you have to go with some IDE and start using the features of IDE with integration of Tomcat or whatever web server and application server you are trying to use, and you can build the application. You can develop the application. Once the application is developed and once you feel it is foolproof, you compile it into a jar file, and that jar file will be passed on to production support or whatever relevant team to deploy as an application. Okay, so first and foremost and very important thing is REPL or IntelliJ or Eclipse, they are developer tools. Okay. So as REPL and IDE is also developer tools, which one we should use? We should use both. Okay, REPL to explore and get with the proper code, and if you have to create multiple classes as part of your web application or whatever application you are trying to develop, it's better to use IDE. If you keep on using REPL, it will be quite cumbersome for you. It will be quite tedious. So you have to use both. And another important thing is, once you have IDE such as IntelliJ, you don't need to go back to command line like this. There are features as part of the IntelliJ itself which will replace REPL. Okay. But there is one thing which I will explain a little bit later, where REPL is still handy. Okay. Anyway, that is not point of discussion for now. So you need to understand how you can get interface similar to REPL or which can replace REPL. For that, you have to go to source main Scala. Okay. And then you have to right click on it and then say new. Okay. Here you can see there are a bunch of options: Java class, Scala class, etc. So these are primarily to create program files for your application. On top of this, you have Scala worksheet and Scala script. So Scala worksheet is the one which will replace or which can replace your REPL. Okay. So here I'm giving some as the worksheet name. Okay. Also, they have a feature called make project. I think what it will do is it will actually make a project for you based upon the code you generate here, creating the necessary classes and all those things. Anyway, I will not be using it quite a bit, but we will be using interactive mode. If you disable the interactive mode, you will not see the output immediately. You have to run by clicking on this. If you enable interactive mode, whatever you type here, so let's say print, let me zoom in a little bit here. Print hello world and save it. You will see the output immediately on the right side. Okay. Similarly, if you copy paste the sum function, and paste it here. So the now function is created. Yeah. Control C, Control V work if it is Windows. If it is Mac, you have to use Command C, Command V. In my case, I'm using my IntelliJ with in VI mode. So I will be using some Unix commands. So don't worry about it. You can use Control C, Control V to paste. If you are familiar with VI, if you love VI, probably using VI mode can improve your productivity a bit. So now we have created a function called sum, and now let us invoke. Let us try to get sum of even numbers once again. So here, just to refresh what we have seen earlier. So it takes three parameters. You can see here it is actually showing what sum takes. Don't know why it is not showing now. Yeah, I think I can start typing. Yeah, now you see at the bottom below that it is showing that first parameter is of type function. How can I determine that? By seeing colon and then variables and then imply and then return type. So that means it's a function. So here I will take one parameter of type integer for this function, and I want to just say if I mod 2 equal to 0, then I want to return I, else I want to return 0. so that I don't want to add odd numbers to it. So that concludes the logic for the first parameter. Okay. Then the second parameter are range of values, which are 5 comma 10. Okay, and now you can see the result immediately. So sum of even numbers between 5 and 10 is 6 plus 8 plus 10, which is 24. Okay, so this is how you can create functions, and you can validate by invoking as part of the same page. You can save it from command line also. You can save it. For example, if you say help here, the REPL also you have save and path. So save will actually save the replayable session to a file. So whatever you are doing here, if you want to save to a file, you can say colon save, and you can save it to a file. Okay. So that is about worksheet. Very, very important to understand, because you don't need to go back to REPL and keep on practicing. You can have worksheets saved as part of the project itself, which is here. Okay. Now, if I want to create an object, so we are talking about object. So there is a question here. Let me go through that question. The question is, once we hit execute, it will execute complete code in worksheet. Yes. So by default, if you just click on this, it will execute everything. If you want to execute one line, you can just select and then run execute. I'm not sure it executed everything, but the result to have refreshed. Let me see. Let me give a typo here. So there is a typo in print, and let us see the selected line will be executed or not. Okay, so when we click execute, it will execute everything. It will not execute only that line. Okay, I thought it will only execute that line. That's fine. So Jana is saying, just to understand, it was just demo of worksheet usage, not anything related to objects, right? That's correct. I will be using IntelliJ. Before getting into creating the objects, I just want to make sure you understand IntelliJ a little bit better. Okay, and one of the things which you need to keep in mind is that it provide a feature called worksheet. Even Eclipse will provide that. Okay, now let us right click and go to new and choose Scala class. So if you want to create an object, you have to click on drop down and click on object, and then create a class called create a program file called for hello world, which is HW in this case. So the object name and your program file name need not match, or class name and your program file name need not match, unlike Java. In Java they have to match, right? But here it need not. Okay, you can if you want, you can replace by saying hello world for the object name when the program name is hw.scala. Okay, but if the program name so if you have class, you can have as many classes, as many objects as part of the same program file. You can get list of those classes and objects by expanding the arrow beside the program name itself. So in this case, hw.scala have one object called hello world. So if you want to develop hello world program programmatically similar to Java, this is how it will look like. Like in Java, you can also you also need to define main function to create an executable program. Okay, and the main function starts with the def. This is the syntax of creating functions in Scala, which we have seen earlier also. The function name is main itself, and it take so what main function in Java takes, it takes an argument of type array of string. Okay, so how will you define in Java? You will say like this, right? This is how you define in Java. But here you have to define like this. First, you have to give the parameter name, the way we have seen earlier also while creating the sum function, fact function, etc. You have to give the parameter name first, and then to create array of string, you have to say array of string like this. So it is a lot more expressive than Java. Okay, So it really means we are actually passing array of strings by seeing at the code itself. Okay, and here array is also one kind of class or object in Scala. So everything is classes and objects in Scala. Okay, then we can specify curly braces like this. It automatically filled the return type unit here. And then there are few questions. I will answer those questions once I complete this program. I can say println hello world. Okay, and save it. And then if you want to run, you just click on you just right click and click on run hello world, and you will see the output at the bottom. First time it will take some time to build. You can ignore this warning, or probably it is just information, and you can see the results with hello world. Okay, so this is the first program which we have developed using Scala. Even though earlier we have developed some code, this is the time we have actually created the program. I hope now people come out of the mindset that Scala is a scripting language. So someone is saying it's like Linux scripting or Unix scripting earlier. So that is not the case here. It is a complete programming language with functional as well as object-oriented features. Okay. So that being said, what is this object? Object is special type of class which is singleton. So if you want to create objects, if you want to instantiate an object using new, if you are from Java background, it will not let you do so, because a singleton class, you are not supposed to create objects. It has to be loaded only once as part of the application life cycle. So in this case, when you say object, you cannot instantiate objects of type object hello world in this case. Okay, and there is no static keyword in Java and sorry, in Scala. In Java, if you have to define main function, you have to say public static void main. Only then you will be that program will become executable. So as there is no static at all in Scala, we have to define the main function only in singleton class, which is object. Okay, again, this is mainly for Java programmers. For others, don't worry too much about it. Just keep in mind that if you want to develop a executable program, you have to create object, then a main function which takes arguments of type array of string, and you are good to go. Don't think too much beyond that. If you want, you can even mug up. You don't need to worry too much. It's just the syntax you need to remember. So there are a few questions here. Let me take those questions before I talk further. So the first, I hope everyone is clear of what I have covered. I will go through the questions one after the other. I have answered the Jana's question last time, so I will be taking from Shakti. So don't type any more, because my chart will be refreshing. So hold on up to a moment. If you want, you can type your question. If you think that you will be forgetting, just type your question, but don't hit enter until I'm done with the current questions. And make sure you keep everyone in the loop. Okay, that will make the experience much better for me as well as you. So event parameters can be passed to functions based on a condition. I do not understand your point, Shakti. I think it was related to the functions, higher order functions and anonymous functions. I will be deferring it for now. If you want, we can reiterate or we can revisit this question in the last 10 minutes. But if it is not question anymore, we can ignore. So Amog is asking me, can you please explain the different folders under project? Definitely, it is a very, very valid point. I think you also have follow-up. No follow-up from you, just this thing. So if you see here, when we create the project, there is a main folder, there is a test folder. So if you are a good programmer with any of the programming languages, you have to develop your program with unit test cases. And how? So again, unit test cases, for developing your programs for unit testing, you need to write programs using different APIs. Because it is related to test, we have a directory called test, and all your unit test cases, all the programs related to your unit testing has to go to this. Okay, so that is the purpose of test. It's only best practice. It is not a rule, but a best practice which you need to follow as a programmer. Your actual source code will go to the main, and because Scala and Java are interoperable, it is quite common that people use Scala as well as Java within the same project. So to just separate your Scala code from Java code under source main, we will actually add more folders such as Scala, Java, etc. And we will actually then create different folders for different packages. Or we will create different packages, and we will create our program files in that. So source main Scala is the main directory for all your Scala programs that are part of your application. Then comes target. So target is the, you don't deal with target directly. That's why it is in red color. Okay, you should not touch target. What it will do is, whatever is relevant for your program to execute, okay, that will be available as part of the target. It could be classes for your program itself. It could be third-party stuff also. Okay, so if you see here, there is a hello world object here also, but this is compiled version. This is not the actual hello world program. Okay, so just to get the information whether the programs are being compiled and whether you can see the classes here, they have provided here. But when you double click, it actually get the code from here only for you. Okay, but internally, if you go to the directory, this hello world object, the class related to this hello world will have all binary characters, weird characters. Okay, so that is the purpose of target. You should not touch that at all. And then very important one, build.sbt. Okay, so whenever you create an application, the base directory of your application. Okay, so if you want to get the information, you can right click on this, copy path. You can go to the terminal and then cd paste and then hit enter. So this is the base directory for your project. So whenever you create a SBT based project, in the base directory you will see this src build.sbt target and project. Okay, so we will not touch target and project at all. It will be taken care as part of compilation and all those things. Build.sbt we rarely touch to define the dependencies. Source is the one which we actually use for coding. Okay, so here if you look at build.sbt either from command line or from IDE, it has three parameters or properties: name, version, and Scala version. So when we actually create the application, we have chosen the name as this one. S&S stands for Scala and Spark 2017 June because it's 2017 June batch. And I have chosen 2.10.6 as Scala version when I created the application. So this gives the Scala version which we have chosen while creating the SBT based Scala project. And then version is the version of our code. If you want to build your application, there will be multiple phases, and for each phase or for each branch, you will have a different version. So you have to start versioning your code also. So this 1.0 represents the version of your code. Okay, and don't increment whenever you save it. That is not the purpose of it. So yeah, we will try to develop the application as a team. Okay, and we'll be using tools like SVN or Git to save into it and then version the code internally, so that we can recover the code if we delete our directories from our PC. This version is different from SVN versioning. This version is to just give name to your incremental deployment of your code. For example, you have a banking application. As part of the scope, as part of the initial release, you created an application where people can log in and see their deposits. That's it. They cannot do anything. So that will be the first version of your code. As part of the second version, let's say you have added the feature to credit where users can actually credit and debit money with their with other people using account number and other details. So you have to as a team develop a huge bunch of code, and you have to develop that as a unit. So that will be the second version of your code, like that. So this version signifies that. Okay, don't try to change the version whenever you save it. For now, at the time of exploration, you can leave 1.0 through the course. You don't need to update this at all. Okay, it is more relevant when you start working as a team while deploying major applications. So that is the purpose of these things. Every build.sbt of your project and your applications have to have these three. Okay. Now let me also show you. Let me also go to this location, target, Scala 2.10, and classes. Okay, copy path and paste it here. You can see that you can go from the backend also. Okay, so under target, this Scala-2.10 is generated based on the version you have given for Scala. So your version of code is being compiled with Scala 2.10. So that's why it has created directly 2.10. Within the same project, if you want to upgrade it to 2.11, first thing you have to change is go to build.sbt and change it to 2.11. And going forward, your target will have Scala-2.11, and all your compiled classes with Scala-2.11 will be there under classes of that directory. Okay. So now if you see, there is a hello world.class and hello world$.class. And if you try to cat these things, you will see special characters. This is the byte code. This is not the regular code. So this is the compiled code of your of Scala, which can be interpreted by JVM and return the results. Okay. Anyway, you shouldn't touch target at all. Okay. So that's about the very good question asked by Amog. Thank you for asking that question. And Raja is asking, when I was typing in IntelliJ, I'm getting beep sound and unable to enter anything, but when I paste them, I'm getting output. So most likely your preferences could be that you have chosen VIM as your editor. So try fixing it yourself. If you could not raise the issue with a screenshot, we'll definitely get back to you. Okay, because I don't have on top of my head. Okay, so then Piyush is asking, can you reiterate creation of object file? I do not have option to create object. Okay, so here you have to go to source main Scala, right click on this, new, go to Scala class and change it to object. That will create the class, create the object. So even if you forget that, let me say, it has created if the program with class keyword. I can just say object, and automatically it will be converted to object. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. I'm deleting this. So Balamurali is asking, can we create a class also of hello world, or is it only the objects that can be executed? So your main function can only be in the means the executable main function can only be in the object. If you have main function in class, you have to treat it as a regular function. You have to instantiate and you have to invoke using the object of that class. Okay. So don't type. No formalities. Thanks. Okay. You can ignore those things. If you have follow-up, you ask the question or be silent. Okay, Ashish is saying defining main function is not clear to him. So let me go here. So for now, don't worry too much about it. Just go through my blog and copy paste and try to understand that this is just syntax, and you keep on practicing and you will get it. You don't need to break your head on this. Okay, this is just executable function. So if you want to execute anything by right clicking on it and then say run hello world, it has to be like this. Okay, otherwise if I delete this, let's say I delete, let me comment them out. Okay, I hope every one of you know how to comment. So for single line comment, double forward slash, otherwise you have to put in slash star and you have to end with star slash. Okay, there is also shortcut. If you hit control forward slash, it will comment that line. You can also select multiple lines and just hit control forward slash, it will comment all those lines in one shot. Okay, now if I comment these things out, you see there is no run option here. If you have to see that run option, your program has to be executable, and you can make it executable just by defining main function. Okay. So let me go through the questions one after the other. You are absolutely right, Pramod. It is the entry point of the program. Someone is saying it's just a statement for someone's earlier issue. Jana also recommended. And then Jana is asking, when I copy path and go to command windows, do ls-ltr. I receive ls is not recognized as internal or external command. So you are using DOS prompt. If you are using DOS prompt, you have to run dir command to list the files. That's why I highly recommend people to set up Cygwin. Okay, if you are interested, you can go to my YouTube channel. You can actually search like this: YouTube ITversity Cygwin, and there are videos. So set up Cygwin that will simulate the Linux terminal for you. There are others also, like Windows PowerShell or Git shell, which are alternatives for Cygwin. Try to have one of those things so that you can follow my commands exactly, and your productivity also will increase if you keep on practicing in Linux way than Windows way. Okay, someone is asking how to create a jar in IntelliJ. That I will be covering later. Don't worry too much about it. I'm not 100% sure about how to build jar using IntelliJ directly, but I will be demonstrating from SBT. So that's why I asked people to set up SBT. So I'm deferring that at this time. Yes, Haripriya, that is correct. You just have to remember that syntax, just like in Java. Okay, so we have 2 more minutes. I will take any random question. Someone, but don't ask programming questions and all those things without practicing. If you practice and if it is throwing error and if you want me to troubleshoot, I will do that. Or if you are not clear after practicing, I will explain, but don't throw questions without practicing.
Hey, Durga, this is Amar.
Yes, Amar.
I'm not able to get that recorded videos, the last two, the last session yesterday.
So, okay, let me see. So after the session, within 10-15 minutes, okay, those who are all invited on the WebEx, they will be getting email from WebEx itself. Okay, so with subject updated meeting space. Okay, and here is the recording for yesterday's session. If you do not get it, most likely you did not accept for the WebEx. That could be the reason. So that's what I have to troubleshoot the issue. I'm not sure whether it will be downloadable for everyone or not. As an admin, I can download, but I'm not sure for you it can be downloaded or not. If it can be downloaded, I will give access to download for you guys. So Travis, okay, let me go through questions one after the other. What is the use of Cygwin? So it will provide you interface similar to what I'm using. I'm using Mac terminal. So Cygwin is simulator of Linux terminal. Okay, and you can access your Windows file system in Linux way. So you will understand once you set up Cygwin and once you start running these ls commands which I'm running. Yeah, Bala, but some people want to just watch the videos offline due to the restriction in their office or something. That's why they're asking. Travis, is there any benefit of to develop Scala and Spark apps on a particular OS? No, they are completely OS agnostic. You can develop on one. You can develop on any platform, and you can deploy on any platform. When it comes to deploying, yes, there will be certain differences when you deploy on Windows or Mac or Linux. Typically, we will be deploying on Linux, but for developing, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, so as I have mentioned to you earlier, I'm not 100% sure about this question, Gopi. Just send an email after the class. I need to do some research, and I will get back to you with proper answer. At this time, it will be assumption rather than a proper answer. So I will defer it for now, but send me an email. I will definitely get back to you either tomorrow or next week, early next week. So it's already 10:01. I'll not be taking any questions relevant to the discussion because people who want to drop, they can drop. But if you have any general questions, I'll give a couple of, I will wait for 10-15 seconds after each question. And I will try to answer as many questions as possible in next 5 minutes. If there are no questions, I will just conclude the meeting. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so don't go through that anymore. Just stop it and move on to the new stuff. And there won't be much difference even with new stuff.
Okay, because some like on registering table create RDD schema and all getting errors.
Yeah. So don't worry with that. 1.2 is so earlier I have covered using 1.2 even though it was outdated by the time because CCA was conducted with 1.2. Now CCA is changed to 1.6. So you have to practice on 1.6.
So the playlist for 1.6 is there available?
Yes, so I will I will paste it on WebEx also later. Sorry, WhatsApp also later. But for now, I will paste it here. So it is under my channel. So you can actually if you are aiming for CCA, I would recommend to refer this one for now. I'm in the process of creating proper course on my website. For now, you just have to follow the videos on this playlist.
Basically, I'm looking for that aggregation statistics on that conferences.
Yeah.
That's where I'm stuck now.
Yeah, sure. You can go through it. And the main difference will be in the data frames and Spark SQL. 1.2, it was not matured yet, so it will not work. It will not work. But others, it's almost same.
So instead of Spark Core, we can just use the data frame from Spark SQL to get.
Yeah, instead of core Spark, you can use data frames and Spark SQL itself. And performance-wise, if you use appropriately, it tend to be better in most of the cases, especially, and it is faster to develop, and also it tend to be better in performance. But if it is a complex logic, and if the performance is the topmost criteria, then you have to focus on the core APIs, and you have to program meticulously using core APIs. Then only will get the best performance, best of the performance. So Gopi is asking, going forward, will you be covering with Scala programs on different use cases, or will we go ahead with Spark? So if you go through the curriculum, Amarnath, you can go on to mute. If you go to the curriculum, after object-oriented concepts, we have collections and tuples. So I'll be spending a lot of time on collections and tuples, at least 2 classes on collections and tuples. So at least it will take 3 to 4 more classes to cover Scala. And we will be developing one simple program to just understand how programs are developed end to end as part of the course. And then we will move on to Spark. Okay, so Anish is asking, will you be able to cover streaming analytics like Flume, Kafka, and Spark streaming in this course? Yes, Anish. I'll be doing a demonstration, end-to-end demonstration using all 3. I will not be going into customizations of Kafka and all, but you will get a fair understanding about how you can actually integrate Flume and Kafka with Spark streaming and get some streaming analytics. So Srini is asking, I have installed IntelliJ, but it's not completely functional. So what you need to do is you have to start using discuss.itversity.com for this. If it cannot be answered, we will definitely have a team viewer session with you, and we'll get it resolved within next day or 2. Okay, so just start using discuss.itversity.com, because most of the issues related to setting up the environment can be trivial, and people can answer those questions very easily. And make sure you paste the screenshot and ask the question appropriately related to that screenshot. That will help us to reproduce and troubleshoot the issue and come back to you. Okay. So that being said, that's it. And thank you very much for joining the session, and we'll catch up tomorrow. And those who are on YouTube, thank you very much for joining today's session also. We will be planning to support you guys when the live session is happening. Even if I'm not able to answer your questions, there will be people who will be there to answer. Already Prashant is supporting on my behalf. So you will not be getting all the answers like the live session, but we will try to respond as many answers as we can, so that you get better learning experience even through YouTube Live. Okay. And that being said, if you like this, please click on the like button. If you want to share with your friends, click on share and share with your friends. And use the comment section for the feedback. And if you are not subscribed to this channel yet, and if you accidentally ended up on this, if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. You can see the subscribe button here. And finally, if you need environment to practice, use labs.itversity.com. We have $14.95, $34.95, and $54.95 plans from 1 month to 6 months in dollars. And you can learn big data hands-on by following our videos and leveraging the platform. That being said, thank you. Bye.